All right, this week on Current Affairs Taiwan, we have a packed show for you. Michael, what are we going to talk about this week?
We're going to talk about Han Kuo-yu and the polls, telling his followers to say they're going to vote for Ying-wen. And Han Kuo-yu coming out in support of gay marriage, in case you didn't think that last one was weird enough. And Han Kuo-yu's recent acid issues, the accusations that his father-in-law might have had some hanky-panky with illegal gravel mining.
Yep, which may or may not have, Han may or may not have been involved in influence peddling.
Oh, that's
possibly.
right, yes. And we're going to talk about Han's attempt to sound like Ma Ying-jeou. And we're going to talk about the poll gap between genders.
Yes.
And stay tuned, because it's going to be a great show. And once again, look up our non-existent sponsor. Hi, welcome back to another edition of Current Affairs Taiwan. This is Donovan Smith, and I'm Michael Turton. And we have so much to talk about today, but right now we're going to start off with a plug.
A plug. All right, we've got a new website. It's launching here, and it's very integrated with the show, and it's intentionally integrated with the show. It's report.tw, so it's pretty short and easy to remember, report.tw. And on that site, what we're doing is we're doing some news aggregation so that you can see some of the articles with the quotes that we find that are interesting from the article, and then you can go click on the article and go to the original site and follow up and see what's going on there. There's also articles on there are just short, quick takes of what we're thinking about, what comments on what's going on during the week. Of course, our videos, our podcasts will be up there. And then we're going to be picking articles that we think are must-reads. So you'll be seeing a lot of things from Frozen Garlic, Ketagalan Media, essentially all the juicy stuff that you really want to follow in terms of news and must-reads, our own comments, videos, and podcasts, so that you can keep up with what's going on politically, and you can keep up with what's going on in foreign policy, and also a little bit of diversion to what China's up to keep an eye on. So it's essentially there, and this backs up and buttresses what we're doing on the show, because when we talk about what you'll be able to do starting at hopefully the next show, and partially that's true for this show, all the things that we're talking about, at least when we're using English language sources, you'll be able to go and check out. Now, sometimes we do use Chinese language sources as well, and also TV shows, which obviously we can't put up there. But you can at least then, so if you have questions or you want to get a little bit more depth, or you're a little unsure about something that we're referring to, the articles are there on report.tw. So you can see and follow up and get the background and more depth on what we're talking about on the show.
All right. So what was the name of that easy-to-remember website? I forgot.
Yeah, what was that? Oh, right. Report.tw.
Report.tw.
No .coms, none of that. Just a report.tw.
Fabulous. So we got a full slate today.
Yes.
A full slate of Han Kuo-yu, the KMT presidential candidate. It has been a wild week.
We got a teppanyaki slab of Han Kuo-yu today.
He's like a toboggan heading downhill.
Yeah.
So what's up first? Shall we start with gay marriage?
Sure. All right. Because I haven't been talking enough, so how about if I kick off on that?
Go for it.
All right. I actually posted up on report.tw the very first one of what I call a quick take. I don't know. Maybe I'll change the name. Mike came up with a great name.
Okay. All
right. Well, we'll save the surprise. Save the surprise. All right. So I put up a quick take on Han Kuo-yu and marriage equality. He came out and told a young supporter, one of a dozen or so.
A dozen, I think.
Yeah, a dozen, yeah. Came out and asked him and said, considering that marriage equality is very important to the younger generations, what does he think about it? Because he's never commented on it directly. So he came out and he said something that was really thoughtful. It was empathic. It was thoughtful. He talked about how people in relationships, they need to, make their own decisions, and people on the outside really can't understand it, and that he hopes and prays that, that these people will find love, and it was actually really a very thoughtful,
be able to form a family. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was, so
it was good.
Yeah, it was very good. I was actually, it was a touching and a very caring statement that he made. And now, there's two possibilities that come out of it. They're not mutually exclusive. You can read my full description on report.tw. But first is that he genuinely means it. And I thought it was what he said was meaningful enough that that's definitely a possibility. Though it's not really in character with a lot of the things he said in the past.
No. But what's the second possibility?
Now, the other possibility, and I should just quickly add that his wife also is very clearly come out and said that she's against it, and she said that Han Kuo-yu would revisit the issue of marriage equality if he were elected. That's what she said. However, spouses don't always agree on things, so,
Right.
Now, the second possibility is that he's desperate. And that... You look so shocked.
What?
So, all right. So, here's the thinking on that. Is that he's got is that basically his core support base, which now is shrunk to the low 20s,
where months ago you predicted it was.
Yeah.
That's as low as it could fall, you were saying.
Yeah, unless
Basically
there was
stuck there.
something that could finally shake their core, which this possibly could be it. So here's the thing, is that his demographic is basically between 40 and 60, 65. With everybody under 40, age-wise, yeah, sorry. Age-wise, basically, virtually no one under the age of 40 supports him. Now, the other thing is his support base skews toward women. About 10%, if you look at across the board, there's about 10% higher support among men for Tsai Ying-wen and for the DPP among men than women. Women are more supportive of the KMT by a fairly wide margin. There's actually a 15% gap between men supporting Su Tseng-chang and women supporting Su Tseng-chang. So that's a big gap there. So he's got women from 40 to 65 with a chunk of men in that age range. So, and so if he's going to win, he's going to have to get obviously a larger percentage of that base of the people under 40.
Right.
This opens up the problem, though, is that if he doesn't come out with a comprehensive strategy for appealing to the younger generations, and he just does, if he thinks this one thing will do it, it just looks like a cheap political ploy.
Well, it's a thoughtful political ploy,
Yeah.
anyway.
But here's the thing: how many people are going to read that and think that and
Right.
contemplate that? They're going to see the headline and they're going to go, "Oh, he's just pandering."
Yeah. Well, that's actually the yet another option is that Han has a habit of saying whatever the people in front of him want to hear.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's a
he's
concern.
good at that. So.
But see, here's the thing, is that his support base is deeply, deeply loyal to him, and they've been with him through the negligent homicide and the beating up of Chen Shui-bian. That hasn't hurt him. Him coming out and admitting that he likes to drink and gamble, they're with him on that. They've stuck with him with all the press attacks and all the opposition attacks. And showing that he owns tons of property. He's not really the everyman that he appears. They keep sticking with him, and I suspect that a lot of that is because that they feel that at the end of the day, they think that he has their values at heart, and this could call this into question. Now, you had a good comment though on that when we were talking about this before the show, though.
I did. What did I say? I already forgot.
Well, you were pointing out that his wife.
Oh yeah, well his wife had been she'd been slurring gays, and she'd even accused the what was it, schools teaching anal sex?
Yeah,
That
gender equality was all about anal sex and
all
masturbation.
that kind of ridiculous stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. Well, then what did I say? That was it.
Basically that she could play the role of shoring up that base.
Yeah, she could. Well, the way I look at it is this: Han's out there sounding benevolent, which is the big man is supposed to do in Chinese culture. The big man has to be benevolent.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, at his right hand, the subordinates are telling you what is really going on.
Right.
So you're supposed to get that second message as well as and yet appreciate the benevolence of the big man.
Yes.
So that's how I read this incident, at least on Twitter today.
Mm-hmm.
So there's
Good take, yeah.
speaking of Han's money, a couple of things came out. first they had the disclosure filings for the assets of the candidates, and we were all shocked to learn that Han Kuo-yu filed as having more assets than Tsai Ing-wen.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people were shocked to read that. But I guess those of us who've been following Union politics for years weren't all that shocked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the reason is, what was Han Kuo-yu doing in the 90s?
Well, he was a legislator,
and
he
why?
went and had a bunch of meetings with the Ministry of Economic Affairs, I think it was, and the Yunlin County government about getting this big embankment job for his father-in-law's company.
No.
And the father-in-law's company is...
This is according to Kuo-chang.
Kuo-chang, yes.
Who's an important figure in the New Power Party.
Well, apparently that he had the meetings while he was the legislator, and that his father-in-law's company got his gravel company got the embankment job. I think is actually, I think that's known.
Accurate.
Yeah,
but
that's accurate.
Anything that we infer from that is speculation.
Speculation, of course.
Right.
However, the father-in-law came out in something which, if I got this correct, said basically something along the lines of, that's why Han Kuo-yu became a legislator. Something along these lines.
That's what you do. You got a gravel company, one kid goes off to be a legislator.
Right, yeah. So now keep in mind that the father-in-law was a city councilor for a long time. He's a local Yunlin County factional politician heavyweight. So Han Kuo-yu's defense, he said he told Huang Kuo-chang, the NPP candidate for party list legislator, and I guess their most popular or most well-known figure right now. He said, look, take this to the prosecutors or I'm going to sue you for spreading, and there's a law, according to the law, if you spread fake news to try and interfere in an election, he's saying that I'm going to sue you under that provision unless you take this to the prosecutor. Basically, he's saying, go for it.
Well, how many people... Actually, pretty soon the number of people who are not being sued by Han Kuo-yu is going to be less than the number of people who are being sued by him. So, what can you say? In those days, that was the done thing. And that's basically what he said. That's basically his defense. Look, that's what we did. The law was unclear. He said that.
That's true.
And the fine was tiny. It was 30,000 NT. He was fined. They were not him, sorry.
Yeah.
But the gravel company was fined for illegal mining and for illegal land occupation. But that's normal for the operations of a gravel company in Taiwan, and the fines are insignificant. It was 30,000 NT, which even in the 1990s was nothing for a large gravel company.
No.
But it shows, I think, the very tight links between local politicians and gravel, which I often tell newcomers to Taiwan is if you really want to understand Taiwan, you need to look at gravel. It's the lifeblood of the construction industrial state.
Yes.
And all of the politicians, somewhere, so many politicians are dipping their fingers into that pool somehow.
Yes.
So...
And you remember the gravel truck drivers, but that's a story for after the election when we have more time. All right, we're going to take a quick break here. We'll be back in a second. We're taking a break for our non-existent sponsors. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back. I hope that you support our non-existent sponsor.
That would be very easy for you.
Yes.
It would require very little action on your part.
Yes. Well, we have someone who's helping to edit our video this time, not me. And this person knows a whole lot more and requested we introduce that little break there. So it may be a call for action to do something like hit subscribe on our YouTube channel, something like that. Anyway, we'll see what comes up.
Okay.
See what comes up with.
Speaking of what came up, Han Kuo-yu was at it about the polls. Yeah.
I've never seen anything like this. I mean, this is mind-blowing. I have never seen anything like this anywhere in the world. Any candidate do this. Why don't you kick this off?
Well, let's see. The first thing he said was he advised his followers not to answer phone calls when people are polling them about the election. I guess the thinking was that Tsai will build up such a huge lead that all the DPPers will stay home when they look at these massive polls.
Something like that,
Something
right.
like that.
Mhm.
But then he went even further. He said,
He said now he's actually encouraging his followers, Han Kuo-yu, the KMT candidate, when a pollster calls, he asked his supporters to say they only support Tsai Ing-wen.
So
Have you
this-
ever
yeah.
heard of anything like this?
No.
Ever. Anywhere.
Nathan Battle had some really trenchant comments on this.
Yes.
First, he said it's going to make all the polls unreliable.
Yep.
And second, imagine that you're a KMT legislator, and you're especially one in a close race, and you want to refine your message by polling people to see what they want to hear and how they're going to respond to you, and you can't now
Yep.
because your people won't talk to you, or they'll feed you nonsense like we're voting for Tsai Ing-wen.
And here's the thing: will that carry over through to the party list? We don't know. How much of an impact will it have on his supporters actually giving responses? Because some of them will get the message, and some of them won't. So some of them are still going to say they support Han Kuo-yu. Some of them will have gotten the message and will follow through. But see, here's the thing: the people who haven't gotten the message, if they see him dropping in the polls because they go into the 7-Eleven and they see the headline on Apple Daily
Right, yeah.
or
Or
Next
CVS
Magazine
in
or
the
something,
restaurant, yeah.
and that's all they know, and they see him drop below Song Zu-yu in the polls or something like that,
God.
they're going to go, oh, he's doomed, and then they're going to consider Song Zu-yu or Tsai Ing-wen. And what if his supporters do this on the party list one or their
We can only
local
dream.
candidates?
We can only dream.
We don't know what the repercussions of this are.
The polls that we were looking at this week not only showed the huge gaps between men and women that we were talking about, also showed that the DPP is now ahead on the party list. You were telling me.
They're now in the 33, 35, 36 range.
And the KMT is where?
KMT about 24 to 26.
So that means that the DPP has a large lead on the particular vote for the party list, which is different from the vote for the candidates or the presidential candidates or legislative candidates. You have to actually select that party list.
Yeah.
So the KMT party list was a disaster that is still reverberating with
Mhm.
them. And you had mentioned a figure that the DPP wants to keep them below. So the
Well,
fourth
yeah.
guy, Wu Si-hwai, doesn't make it onto that list.
Yeah, Wu Si-hwai, for context, is the retired general who was seen standing in China at a Xi Jinping-led event, standing for the People's Republic of China national anthem, and may or may not have been singing it. And he also gave a interview on, I think it was Hong Kong TV, where he was giving tips and advice for the PRC to defeat the United States in a war. So a lot of people are concerned that as a legislator he'll have access to privileged and sensitive information, and people are concerned that they can't trust him. So apparently, if the KMT gets 1.59 million, I think that's the number, that number or less, and this number's been passed around.
On the party list.
Yeah, on the party list vote, which is, then they'll only get 3 seats, which means that Wu Si-hwai would not actually be in the legislature. So that's their target.
It's not impossible, but it's hard to see. If there's 11 million voters,
Yeah.
and Tsai gets about 5 million and Han gets about 3.8 million, then at less than half, about half those people would have to blow off the KMT party list vote.
You know,
That's asking a lot.
I think there's a lot of people I mean, there's still a good solid 20 some odd percent, I think, that would just vote for the KMT
Yeah.
no matter what.
They'll hold their nose and vote.
Yeah.
Although that list, wow. So all the stuff that's come out about Han, the houses, the gravel company, all these things, you know, we were saying before the show, this has to be laid at the feet of Udoni, who did not vet
Mhm.
his candidate, and
Yeah.
see and find out what things existed and how they were going to deal with them when they came out.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you were pointing out before the show that KMT already had a slew of candidates without any of these issues.
Yeah.
They had Zhu Liren, who's already been publicly vetted as a candidate.
Yep.
They had Terry Go,
Mm-hmm.
and they had one other you mentioned. Now
Wang
it's spaced
Jinping.
it. Wang Jinping, thank you.
Yep.
And he was awesome because he's the only candidate I know who gives interviews with the press wearing a white T-shirt, which gets my vote for
Yes.
president.
Yeah.
Because I'm slowly reaching that age where I'll finally be able to walk around in public wearing a underwear and a white T-shirt like a real old Taiwanese guy.
Yes, with blue and white flip-flops.
Blue and white flip-flops.
And some slight bit of rain, like red stains on the T-shirt.
So another thing that I caught today, this week, that Han was saying was he's got his 3 nevers. He's never going to stop supporting defense.
Mm-hmm.
He's never going to vote for He's never going to support one country, two systems or Taiwan independence.
Right.
And he's never going to stop trying to make people rich.
Right.
Okay, so this echoes
And support the underprivileged.
Right.
Yeah.
So this echoes Ma Ying-jeou,
Mm-hmm.
right, with his 3 no's. But the thing about it is that he's not as adept as Ma Ying-jeou is positioning himself.
No.
And he's trying to be Ma Ying-jeou, but he can't do it. And one of the things I've noticed this week, I finally realized, is that unlike Ma, who right away came out with "I'm Taiwanese,"
Mm-hmm.
Han has not said that.
That's a good point.
He's so
I hadn't noticed that.
He's so wrapped up in his ROC ideology that he cannot say that. And
Yeah.
he's married to a Taiwanese.
Yeah.
And he works for a powerful, and his father-in-law is a powerful local Taiwanese politician in the KMT.
Mhm.
But he can't just come out and say, "Hey, I'm Taiwanese."
No.
And there's a post on my blog that actually says, it's election time again, so Ma's Taiwanese, right? I mean, it's very predictable. Ma knew how to do that. Lian Jian couldn't, grit his teeth and say, "I'm Taiwanese."
Yeah.
And
no,
you think that
that's
Han,
true.
of all people, who's absolutely mastered that idiom of speaking like a 45-year-old Taiwanese guy,
Yeah.
he's mastered that, but he can't say, "Hey guys, I'm Taiwanese just like you."
Yeah.
And that, I think, is costing him.
I think so too. I think a lot of things are costing him right now.
Yeah. What else do we got? Dun dun dun.
Oh, just quickly, I'll throw in a comment here on that. He's been going very, very negative, and he's starting
yes.
to sound very, very defensive. Just to follow up on your point there.
Yeah.
He's been basically saying that the DPP controls 90% of the media and this kind of thing.
It's so absurd. But
yeah.
Another interesting thing is we've been watching his polls, go like this.
Yeah.
And yet I was
And for those on the podcast, that's down.
That's down. Oh, sorry. I need to make a sound, right?
Yeah, there we go.
So
Wait, that sounds like an atomic bomb dropping.
That's one of the 5 nukes that are going to... The 5 nukes he talked about before.
Yes.
The DPP was going to drop on him. So I was up in Hsinchu this weekend, walking around looking at photographs of candidates. And the legislative candidates for the KMT in Hsinchu, they all still had his picture on them. And I've seen that elsewhere as well. Apparently, no one is removing him from their...
Now, that's interesting. There's 1, maybe 2 legislative candidates here in Taichung who are not showing him.
that great guy in Beituan.
Yeah.
Favorite.
Well, he's not KMT. He's an independent.
Is he?
Yeah, he's independent.
Wait, but he's got the ROC flags and he's full on KMT ideology.
Kind of. He's kind of
it's
out
weird,
there. He wants to eliminate the vice presidency and death penalty for drugs and fraud. He's got some out there.
Death penalty for fraud?
Yeah, fraud groups.
That would mean half the population.
Yeah, I just took a picture of that today and put it up on my Facebook,
right.
so you can take a look at it.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So
does that include tax fraud?
I don't know. It just said fraud groups.
We're all in trouble then.
Yeah. Another thing I noticed actually was a lot of the candidates had kind of a raise your dukes thing. And but yeah, no. There's 1 candidate and maybe 2 who are not. There's 2 who are not on the campaign materials with Han Kuo-yu when they did the shoot a month or 2 ago. One of them might be Yang Qiangying, who was then the vice mayor, who hadn't actually declared she was running, so that may be why she didn't. But then again, she's very close to, and she's a red faction. She's challenging. She's trying to get back the seat she held that Hong Tse-yong kicked her out of.
Yeah.
Hong Tse-yong being ex-NPP who beat her in the last election. She's now an independent.
Hong Tse-yong is the Tanzan legislator. She's my legislator.
Right. That's right, and mine too.
And she's got, and my son's been driving around Tanzan taking pictures of her.
He's stalking her.
He's stalking her posters. And her posters are kind of interesting because the DPP's backing her, so Tsai Ing-wen's picture is on.
And some of them, yeah.
Yeah, not only in her color, not only in DPP color green, but also in
yellow.
In yellow of Hong Tse-yong.
Yeah. The ones with herself, exactly. They're all yellow, like harking back to when she was in the NPP and she won the last time. But then she's in other ones with Tsai Ying-wen. What's her name? The president. And those ones are green. The one thing that's interesting about her campaign, I notice, is if you actually look at her, she's very local in what she's campaigning on.
Oh, yeah.
Like just around the corner here, it's the Tojia Elementary School being repaired for the first time in 19 years.
Yeah.
And she's, and the road is now flat on Zhongshan Road, Section 1, here in Tanzi. These are the kinds of things that she's
pointing that out on Twitter.
Yeah.
The Tanzi one, when you drive into Tanzi towards the market, there's a huge sign of her, and it says, fixing the water system for Tanzi Goshi, or Tanzi High School, I can't remember which one it is, and upgrading its electrical system.
Yeah, and there was another one with the parking lot.
Oh, my God.
In downtown Tanzi. I took a picture of that one, too.
She knows how to do this now.
Yeah. And what's interesting is if you follow her Facebook, she hasn't been taking on, and I noticed this a long time ago, she hasn't been taking on so much the sexy, dramatic issues. She sort of splits. She does a lot of just simply the straightforward, what your legislator's supposed to do kind of stuff. Get a road fix, that kind of thing. But she does do some issues that are important, like judicial reform and things like that, military reform, which are important, but they're not sexy, if you know what I mean.
Right. They're not hot.
They're not hot issues.
Right.
The press isn't going to write reams about it. In fact, most of the issues that she takes on, the press don't write about.
That's pretty sharp of her. And like a lot of legislators, she married a news reporter.
And the head of the Information Bureau under Lin Jialong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she knows how to play the game. She looks great. And I think she's doing fairly well.
Yeah.
So anyway, we're running almost to the end here, I guess. So I guess we'll see you next week with another edition of How Han Kuo-yu has blown up his election.
Yes, it's not going well for him. All right, so check us out on report.tw.
And visit our non-existent sponsors.